When an artist first casts pen to paper, the most passionate and fiery creations usually spawn. And there are very few people alive on this planet who have not been moved by such expressions. In my lifetime, many artists have thrilled me with their output. I will never forget the spine-tingling experiences of hearing and seeing such works of art like Master of Puppets by Metallica for the first time. The Rain in Blood album by Slayer. The Brilliant An American Werewolf in London.
We were attacked by a werewolf.
I'm not listening to this.
On the moors, we were attacked by a lycanthrope, a werewolf. I was murdered, an unnatural death. And now I walk the earth in limbo until the werewolf's curse is lifted. It's you, David.
What?
1999's Brilliant American Beauty.
First of all, that 1 second isn't a second at all. It stretches on forever, like an ocean of time. For me, it was lying on my back at Boy Scout camp, watching falling...
And no pun intended, the extremely dark Donnie Darko.
Yeah, you. You're sick of some jerk shoving your hand down the toilet. Well, you know what? Maybe you should lift some weights or take a karate lesson, and the next time he tries to do it, you kick him in the balls.
Son, do you see this? Right? This is an anger prisoner, a textbook example.
Prisoner.
Do you see the fear, people? This boy is scared to death of the truth. Son, it breaks my heart to say this, but I believe you're a very troubled and confused young man. I believe you are searching for the answers in all the wrong places.
You're right, actually. I am I'm pretty troubled and I'm pretty confused, but I'm afraid, really afraid. Really afraid, but I think you're fucking Antichrist.
The list is endless and I could go on, but I don't want this to become really self-indulgent. I want this to be an appraisal of whether Metallica sold out or whether they didn't. When human beings age, their tastes alter, and those involved in the artistic and entertainment industries seem to be looked upon with great distaste with regards to the way that life's experiences alters their output. It evolves, metamorphosises and shapeshifts, as it should. But all too often we as fans of the original album, the first movie in the franchise, or that virgin creative outing that any given group or individual releases for the world to experience, we feel like we're being lured into some elaborate entrapment operation. On March the 3rd, 1986, Metallica released their magnum opus, Master of Puppets, and it was and still is hailed as a genuine masterpiece this very day. It is a work of great beauty in my opinion, and is a brilliant demonstration of just what can be created when young people driven to express their innermost feelings to a world in which they've yet to find their adult voice make music. With anger, youth and passion, Metallica wrote truly amazing music and poetic lyrics that would be very difficult to express to many people at any age, but in general people do find their ability to speak from their hearts as they mature. But the vehicle of music and the kind nature of pen and paper allow younger people to express a depth that brain and vocal cords combined do not permit until much later in life, if at all.
I need help. I'm in terrible trouble and I need help.
Don't you remember when you were little? How you and Bill Harper would string a wire between the two houses so you could telegraph to each other? Still remember the Morse code?
Darkness imprisoning me. All that I see, absolute horror. I cannot live, I cannot die. Trapped in myself, body my only self.
In the 10 years that followed the release of Master of Puppets, Metallica's career was filled with the wonders of world renown, and that was never due to an abandonment of creative integrity or compromise, and of course they faced the lows of the death of their fellow band member Cliff Burton.
What's he saying? He says, kill me. Over and over again. Kill me. Don't you rest.
Metallica did however change their sound, and boy that change was massive. How they changed is illustrated perfectly by the two following clips, one from 1986's Master of Puppets and the other from 1996's Load.
Master, where's the dreams that I've been
Did Metallica sell out? At the point where this radical change of style occurred, I feel that was probably not the case, and believe me, that is not easy for me to say because I loathed and detested the direction that they went in musically in the mid-1990s.
You beat it once, and now it stays.
In the year 1996, when Load was released, I was 25 years old, and I was very eager to hear Metallica's new material. That eagerness and excitement was shot down in flames from the first second of this album to the very end, 78 minutes and 59 seconds later. My reaction was one of disappointment, sadness and anger. What two words summed up that 78 minutes of music on that CD to me on that day? Sell out. Years later I revisited the album Load, and although my feelings were identical about the CD's content, I no longer felt the words sellout were appropriate to describe it. Speaking as a man who was in his mid-30s when I decided to give Load another listen, I found myself hearing an audio representation of what it's like to be just that, a man in his 30s. I can only speak as a man here, but what occurs in general is the fire and spirit of youth calm. Passions and anger become more focused, and one becomes more comfortable with expressing life in a calmer and more gentle fashion. Metaphorically speaking, the volume gets turned down. The time to get stuff done doesn't feel as urgent anymore. The ways in which our conditioning to satisfy the male-female paradigm of men are men and women are simply cute starts to melt away. Men become less frightened or embarrassed of their innermost feelings being represented by direct conversation and statements, instead of the requirement of a poetry book or the filtration system of expression having to go through lyrics. And that is when the disconnect between the bravado of youth and that person saying it as it is happens. I think one of the problems is that we can feel like we were duped, entrapped and conned into investing a lot of emotion into artists who started putting out their works of passion when they were in their early 20s, and when they as people in their music evolve, we can all too often feel deceived. At that point, while still young and not having a voice in the world, it's going to result in all expression being in your face and aggressive. And then these artists mature and evolve into stages of life where their anger has passed and expressing their voices has become easy due to the ego, bravado and caring what people think having subsided to a large degree. On reflection and having been through my 30s myself, I don't think that Load by Metallica was a sellout. It was, however, four men in their early to mid 30s finding comfort in themselves and sharing aspects of themselves musically that 10 years previously would have been seen as unmanly, or the kind of stuff that a guy only tells his girlfriend, at that age of ultimate confidence yet minimum credibility, where being seen as the big man is of paramount importance.
I've always been an exhibitionist. I've always, I guess I would say yes. I always wanted to be in the entertainment business without really realizing it. And I am now.
In my mid-30s, I calmed down so much compared to what I'd been like 10 years previously. I started finding mellower music moving. I was comfortable with expressing more sensitive sides of myself that would have been a no-no in my 20s. And I think that Metallica's Load album was just four guys getting comfortable in their skins. And believe me, I loathe and detest the Load album to this very day and wish Metallica hadn't found peace and calm, as I want Master of Puppets and the quality of that album on demand each and every year. And so you get to being in your 40s and beyond, and you realise that you calm down a little bit more than was your true reality, and naturally you kick back and embrace the calm acceptance of what and who you are, but with a little bit more of the fire that you were convinced was extinguished when you hit 30. I did initially feel that Metallica and other artists who changed with time and tide had enticed me into their enclosed walls only to entrap me and deny me of the substance they initially used to get me in there in the first place. But I think that in truth it's a case of expectations not taking into consideration that these people are at core ultimately just human beings, and they will have the same roller coaster as you and I. As the comedian Bill Hicks so beautifully put it, it's just a ride.